A very good evening and a very warm welcome to one and all here at the Buddhist Mahaviharas Facebook page. We are going live this evening on our Dhammadana series. And this evening we have a very interesting topic, and I think many of you are also keen to find out on this subject on what's called reincarnation, rebirth, and transmigration. Now, this is a topic that I think has intrigued many people, and many people get confused by the use of these terms reincarnation, rebirth, and transmigration. And this evening, to explain to us about this intriguing subject on reincarnation, rebirth, and also transmigration, is a very erudite professor. This professor has been lecturing especially on this subject. Apparently, he's an expert on Sanskrit and also on the subject of rebirth. And he is none other than our speaker this evening, Professor N. Revata, who's Anunayaka Thera, a very senior monk from the University of Kelaniya. He's retired from the university, but he has cordially and graciously accepted our invitation to be here this evening to talk on this subject. I would like to bring in or invite Professor Revata to the studio. Good evening, Professor. Can you hear me?
Good evening. I can see you.
Good, Bante. Bante, I will just quickly give a little profile about yourself, and then we will start with this evening's Dhamma sharing. Bante is actually a monk of 64 years standing. He has observed 64 Vasas, and one of the most senior monks, I think, right now that we know of in Sri Lanka. He was ordained in 1956, and he has been lecturing at the University of Kelaniya for the last 35 years, and he retired in 2013 from the university. But Bante is still keeping busy by doing online lectures for undergraduate students still, even though it's not part of the university, and keeping himself busy. So right now this evening, we have invited Bante to speak on this subject on reincarnation, rebirth, and transmigration, a Buddhist perspective. So now I'd like to kindly invite Bante to start this evening's Dhamma sharing. Bante?
Okay. Good evening for all of you, dear devotees. Today I have to speak on reincarnation, rebirth, and transmigration. So first of all, I think I should explicit you the name of these words, the meaning of these words. Reincarnation. Re means again. In means into. Kane means flesh. Tin means being. Again in flesh. Again being in a fleshy form. That state of being again in a fleshy form. That is the meaning of the word. Re again in. Carne means flesh. In Latin, carne means flesh. Shan means that state. So the word means again in a fleshy form, again in flesh and blood. It means that the life substance, soul, vijnano, some other thing, depart from this birth, this life, and he take birth in another fleshy form. That's the meaning of the word. And again, another word is there to denote the same meaning. That is metempsychosis. Metempsychosis means metem means after. After. Psychosis means to animate. So again, animate. The life-giving principle again animate in another body. That is the meaning of the word metempsychosis. Again, you can have another word Palingenesis. Palingenesis means, palin means again. Genesis means birth. Palingenesis means again birth. Again take birth. So palin means again, Genesis means birth. So we can see that all the words carry same meaning always. It means that some people, no, each and every people has to undergo this process of rebirth. Then another word is the transmigration. Trans means beyond or far. Migration means to go. So go beyond. In early states, the word used to go from country to country and stay there. But later, the term has been used to denote rebirth. So transmigration means go beyond our knowledge, go beyond our present visual knowledge. Then you can see these words carry some similar meanings. In Sanskrit, we say punarbhava. Punarbhava. Punar means again. Bhava means to be, to become, to take birth. Bhu, the root bhu means that to be, to become. Punarbhava means to become again. And punarutpatti we use. Punar means again. Utpurvapad. Ut and pad. Pad means the root. Ut is a prefix. Ut means towards, up. Pad means to go. Punarutpatti. Again, taking birth. That is the meaning of the word. Utpurvapad means to be born. Utpatti. Punarutpatti. Punar again. Utpatti means to be born, to take birth. In Pali, punarutpatti, punabhava. Puna means punar, same meaning. Bhava means to become, to take a form, to take a bhava. If anyone wants to go beyond this circle, he has to attain moksha. Till then, each and everyone has to undergo this vicious circle. Take this time a birth as a man, again as a bird, again as a ghost, again as a god. Such a circle of births we have to undergo till a man realizes salvation. When we go to the history of this sankalpa or this concept, we can see that the belief in transmigration and liberation has been found among many societies during prehistoric ages. Some may think that the concepts may have started among the ascetics who lived in the first millennium BC. But first known evidences of the belief can be found in the Upanishadic literature. 1100 BC, from 1100 BC to 500 BC. Even before this, among people of Indus Valley civilization and Dravidians of the southernmost places of India, the belief may have been prevalent. Even in Vedic period, a birth after this birth may have been accepted, yet they did not believe in transmigration. But after this birth, one has to become a father, Pitru. Pitru means ancestor. Ancestrally world is there, he has to become an ancestor to live there. Such beliefs have been accustomed to them, have been known to them. Then when we direct our mind towards Greece, Plato knew the idea. Plato had revealed that he had some experience of this concept. Actually, before Plato, Pythagoras has recognized the soul of a departed friend in a dog. He said that when once a dog has been beaten by some people, he said, "Don't bite him. He has the soul of my departed friend." So said the fellow, so said Pythagoras to his friends. That it means that he could see something beyond our naked eye. He may have seen the past births of some people and some animals. Plato picked up the idea and expounded it in several of his dialogues, such as Phaedo and Republic. According to the vision of truth that one attains, one will be born in the next life in a body suitable to the attainment of his present life. If he has done good deeds, he can have a better life. If he used to do evil deeds, he will be born as a meaner person or an animal. Again, when we go to China, in Taoism, we can see the idea. In Taoism, they say that one has to be born again. This is not the end of the samsara, he said. This is not the end of the transmigration. One has to live this birth and then after another birth, he has to take. When we go to Buddhism, Jainism, and Hinduism, they have developed the concept, and we can see many descriptions about the Punarjanma or rebirth. According to Hinduism, one has to live for a long time in this world and in other worlds, birth after birth, till he attains salvation. This salvation should be understood, should be realized through yogic meditation. And one should certainly understand his true nature, the soul. Soul is indestructible. It is eternal. Yet we don't see it. We saw only outwardly things. Our senses are diverted towards the outer atmosphere, not to directed towards the inner self. If a learned man try to understand this innermost soul, he can understand his true nature. Then he comes to know that these every worldly things are transient and transitory. His true nature, soul, is the reality among these transient and transitory things. And then he, after his death, he unite with the world soul or Brahman. After that, he does not come back. He is there forever. Even a Buddhist or a Hindu or anyone who can realize this truth can merge into Brahma. There are no difference among people like sea, like the sea. Many streams flow into sea. Lena River, Irrawaddy River, Ganges, and such other rivers, when they mix with the sea, there is no difference. So, when a man emerges into the Brahman, we don't see any difference. He can be there in that state forever and ever. It is only then a person can get through this vicious circle of rebirth or samsara. That is their understanding and that is their philosophy. According to Jainism, they say karma is a physical substance that is everywhere in the universe. Karma particles are attached to the jiva or soul. Jiva means soul. By the actions of that jiva, just like floating dust, attach the jiva or the soul. So karmas are like material particles floating everywhere. According to the man's avidya, this karma attached to his self, attached to his soul, just like floating dust attached on a mirror, they attach to the jiva or the soul. These particles, if they are floating here and there, they have no effect. But when it strikes to a soul, they affect the life of the soul, of that soul. They can be avoided by two ways. By behaving well. By behaving well. Then no karmas are attached to him. Again, by having the right mental states, developing one's mind, cultivating one's mind, his mental states does not stick to the karmic particles. They do not attach to the soul. And those accumulated karmic particles are detached. They are easily discharged after one realizes true nature of the person. The karma the person is doing through his vachana or vak or speech and his body and mind may attach these karmic particles to his soul. So, to remove them, one should do good actions, and again, he should do self mortification. Extreme sort of asceticism should be practiced to remove these karmic particles. It is only then one can remove them and become free. After that, a person can live forever as the free soul. And that is their moksha. It is called Kaivalya. Kaivalya means to be alone from karmic actions, to be alone from worldly attachment. The soul is there with this full-blown dignity. It will not come to the circle of rebirth. They say that is the moksha. So then now we can see that Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism, they accept karma. These karmic deeds attach man towards transmigration. We should remove these karmic causes through meditation and mental practices and cultivating good qualities in our minds. That's the way to nirvana or moksha or kaivalya. That is the way, only way, one and only way to get rid of this world, this worldly entanglements. So when we come to the Buddhism, Buddha attained enlightenment. He was entitled to its immediate rewards, that is complete salvation. When he realized enlightenment, then he attained enlightenment. As a present, as a reward, he attained complete salvation and spiritual release from the bodily existence, from the transmigration. It means that the innerly apprehended doctrine would never have been known to other men. That is why he thought it is useless to preach the people, because they can't understand this true nature. They can't realize true nature of the world things. After realizing it, we can receive the knowledge how to remove from this worldly cycle. Innermost spiritual meaning of the teaching in Buddhism give the person salvation or moksha. Otherwise, we can't get that end. Buddha asked his disciples to practice Eightfold Path. This path should be practiced slowly and firmly towards the end, till he can cultivate his mind to understand the hidden doctrine. Actually, this moksha cannot be said or given to any other person as a present. He should go along the path and he should realize it. As we do karmic actions, we have to go again and again, once as a man, once as a bird, once as a serpent, till the end. That is to realize this truth, realize Nibbana. So, to follow this, to receive this, one has to follow the middle path or golden way. He should not follow self-mortification. Self-mortification is one end. And again, he should not follow indulgence, physical indulgence to the extremes. That is also not the way to nirvana. One should do his mind ready for this journey, giving up these extremes and practicing yoga, practicing meditation. Then, little by little, he can remove kleshas or defilements. Those are in his mind, those he has gathered for a long period, from an unknown period. They are in our mind. We can't remove them till we realize salvation. So, one has to know dukkha, because this world is full of suffering and sorrow. He should realize this dukkha, and he should realize the cause for dukkha, cause for suffering. It is nothing but trishna or craving. We crave for many worldly objects. Actually, we do not know the true nature of these worldly objects. They are anitya, they are dukkha, they are anatma, anitya. If we see a good fellow, if you see a girl or a youngster in the prime of his youth, we think that he is attractive, but that form decays day by day. Then he has to be an old man, not attractive. Then he leaves the world, leaving apart all those things he had acquired. This jara or old age is very bad and it gives us much suffering. Then marana, nobody wants to leave this world, but we have to depart from this world. Therefore, one must see this dukkha and we must avert the cause for dukkha. That is tanha, actually cravings towards each and everything. After knowing that these world objects are anitya, dukkha, and anatma, not permanent, they give suffering. There is no reality and permanence of these things. He divert his mind towards nirvana, because if we crave for these world objects again and again, we have to go along this vicious circle. That is the way the Buddha preached to give up or get released from samsara. Then, what is going to be born again? According to Hinduism, it is soul. According to Jainism, it is Jiva. Jiva is also soul. This soul is eternal. It cannot be destroyed. It is everlasting. But people don't know it and they see worldly objects. After understanding the true nature of worldly objects, one must divert his attention to perceive soul or Atma. Then he come to know this soul is the sun. It is the thing that I called ego, and it is the essence of my person. All other things are transient and transitory. So he depart from these worldly things and become a soul, become a free soul, and enjoys happiness forever. But according to Buddhism, there is not a soul. Everything is changing. Everything is transient and transitory. After understanding this, one one has to depart from the world. He becomes nirvana. He attains nirvana. Just like we extinguish a lamp, that fellow extinguish his dukkha, his suffering. Then we can't speak of him as he is there or he is there is not. Then we don't have a crave for soul. We have no crave for anything. Even our chitta, our mind, it is a stream of consciousness, not a permanent unit, not an eternal thing. After we have understanding true nature of everything, one has to give up his affection, craving for even mind and mental states. And again, he has no birth. He is like a lamp come to nirvana. It is cessation of dukkha, cessation of trishna or craving. That is the Buddhist way of gaining knowledge and then give up this transmigration. So we have to understand how to prove that rebirth. Actually, we have no knowledge of it, personal knowledge, because it is not our experience. But there are evidences to prove this rebirth. One is remembering past lives. Some people remember their past lives. And when some scholars come there and then they do research work about his saying, they come to know that the fellow says of earlier life. And it is true. Even small boys speak of their early lives. And after examination, many scholars have found that those cases were true. So this remembering past lives is one evidence for rebirth. Then clairvoyance is another proof or another evidence for rebirth. Some people have abnormal faculty to see things not apparent to normal beings. They also provide evidence of rebirth. The best known case of this type is Edgar Cayce. He lived in Virginia in USA. He had a remarkable clairvoyance. Remarkable clairvoyance. He did provide accounts of the previous lives of some people. He had the healing power after seeing through his miraculous divine eye. He could tell medicine to those who want cure for their diseases. For some of them, he said, I have no medicine for you. This is the fruit of your karmic actions. So he told them their previous births and the karmic actions they had done in those births. Such clairvoyants or psychics throughout the history preach this doctrine and they prove to a certain extent evidences to rebirth. Again, there are experimental evidences, that is, age regressive hypnosis. One of the most persuasive arguments in favor of rebirth is based on age regressive hypnotism. A subject is able to recall his past life under hypnotism. He can tell his past experiences both in this life and as well as in his previous lives. This device has been utilized by many psychics to come to know about the previous lives of people who came to them to know of their previous life. So this is one evidence for rebirth or transmigration. Another proof is infant prodigies. Infant prodigies. There are some infants who have enormous knowledge during their early ages. As infant, some of them speak for 5 languages. I came to know of a boy who lived in France, in the city known as Avignon. He spoke 14 languages at his 30 years of age. At 14 years, he obtained his PhD degree. This sort of knowledge a person can gain from his previous births. Even Buddha, when he was a small child, he went to his teacher. When teacher told him or a, he was able to tell all the words beginning with a or a. In Mahayana tales, somebody, uh, some people tell these facts, these stories. Even Beethoven was an infant prodigy. At his early age, he was an expert in music. Even Einstein and such other great scientists gained their knowledge not only in this birth, they have acquired this knowledge during their early ages, and therefore, this is evidence for rebirth. Actually, if somebody speak some languages which has been not learned during this life, how can he be able to speak that language without formal knowledge? If he has not, if he had not learned it in this life, he must have learned it in his earlier life. That is the solution for that problem. Therefore, we have to believe to a certain extent there is punarjanma, there is punarbhava. Due to these facts, we can believe in this punarjanma theory. Actually, you can't you can't understand it through your own knowledge, as you are not a psychic. Yet sometimes we have to put confidence on others to know some other facts unknown to us. That is called agama. That is a pramana or means of knowledge. If somebody say there is a mountain in such a such type in moon, we don't see. But after examining that mountain, if a person say of that mountain, we have to accept his saying. That is because he is an authority. In such a way, we can repose our confidence on these psychics, as they don't tell lies. We can believe them. So, Punarjanma Vishwas or belief in transmigration was not accepted by Christians because they believe in salvation. After this life, one has to go to God, and after he is judging our deeds, he decide where to go, to eternal heaven, no, eternal hell. If somebody goes to eternal heaven, he can't come to this world and tell us about that place because he has to be there forever. If one has to go to the hell and he has to stay there forever, we can't gain any knowledge from him. If somebody comes to this world and says of his future, of his past lives, then we can believe that there is a thing known as transmigration. Because after examinations, we can come to know that the fellow has told actually known to him. So that is a good evidence for this transmigration or rebirth. Actually, We have to believe something, some doctrines without our experience to come to conclusions of some facts, of some problems. So, transmigration is not a concept at all. It is actually a thing to be believed in accordance with these facts which we have discussed earlier. Now I have come to a stop for further discussions. If you have some doubts, you can ask me. If I can understand that problem, I can give you some replies.
Thank you, Bante. Thank you for that very interesting explanation about rebirth, transmigration, and as well as reincarnation. There are one or two questions. Can I post it onto the screen for you to read?
Rebirth is not due to our past karma. We can't accept that saying because man is the person who has a mind, mental power. Unlike animals, he has mental power and he can gain good karma and bad karmas. Due to these karmas, one has to go to other world to reap the fruits of his karmic actions. Buddha taught us there are three factors are there to be born as a man. One is the one is parents' union, and the second is the mother must be in a suitable time for conception. And third condition is a gandhabba or a vijnana comes to the place, comes to the embryo, without which there is no conception. We can believe this because some people have strange qualities, strange characteristics. We can't explain them due to his past circumstances. Some people speak some languages unknown to him utterly. How can we explain them? And some children at about 2 or 3 years of age, they act as teachers. Actually, has not gone to the school even a single time, but he teaches, having not as a teacher. How can that person has that urge to teach? A boy at about 3 act like milking a cow. A person, a researcher, has written down the story of that boy. He said that for in Burma birth, he used to milk cows. Then at about 2 years of age, he acted as a milker. Such things happen due to previous characteristics. Actually, some people has saintly traits, saintly qualities. Some are murderers. I have heard and I have read a man after his death has to live in a plane known as Antarabhava for a long time. If he has to stay there for a long time, then his personal appearance become his former birth's figure, like his former figure. If not, his appearance becomes become similar to his present parents. That means some traits come from past lives. Some people who are stabbed to death have some traits on their skin where he has been stabbed. We can't explain these facts without accepting rebirth. And some monks are born monks. Some philosophers are born philosophers. Nobody can be a philosopher if he has not used to be a philosopher in an early stage. You can think of Buddha. At the age of 29, he left his kingship and every comfort he has acquired. This is an internal urge he brought from his previous births. And therefore, I think there is a ground for us to believe in rebirth. Transmigration and rebirth is the same. I can't I can say it is same, but rebirth means, according to Buddhism, the unending and eternal soul does not go to the next birth. Only five skandhas are going. Actually, five skandhas are there. Vijnana skandha, stream of consciousness, go there. Other skandhas vanishes in this life. They are also not eternal. Even mind is not eternal. It is a stream, just like a waterfall. When we look at a waterfall, we can see a fall, but a drop after drop, many water, many volumes of water falls down. Similarly, mind is floating very at a rapid rate. We can't understand its rate. So we see a soul. Due to its speed, we see a soul. So this ever-changing mind when goes to a place and again he has to be born and acquire five skandhas there according to that circumstances. Therefore, we can say it is a punarbhava to again become another person. If I die here at this spot, my Vedana skandha of feelings, sanya skandha, my knowings, my sanskara, mental forces, all vanishes here. So, what is going there? Again, it has to start there as a new birth, new person. That is punarbhava. And if and if an eternal soul takes the birth, it can be said reincarnation. That is a difference. But actually saying we can use these terms without much difficulty for each and every time.
Thank you, Bante. Thank you for answering the two questions which is related to our topic this evening. There are two other questions that are not related to this evening's topic, but would Bante like to try to answer that questions? Let me post that question to you.
You have to cultivate upekha. Upekha means equanimity. You should not move after seeing each and everything. You can keep your mind calm and quiet. Upekha means indifference to worldly feelings, worldly thoughts, worldly happenings. If you can cultivate this indifference, you can be calm and quiet forever. It is difficult, but metta, karuna, mudita, upekka. Upekka is the factor that we must cultivate to keep quiet in these uh, atmospheres of very unbelievable nature. You can think this pleasure is momentary. This animosity is also momentary. Always we are changing. I can remember of a Muslim saint. He said that always we are taking rebirth. That means once we have love, once we have hatred, once we have indifference, all those times we are having rebirth disease. Similarly, after understand the real nature of this worldly happenings, one must try his level best to keep quiet and gain indifference to worldly nature. You can show your husband some stories. You can show him some films, which those films can prove him the real nature of this life. There are some such films. If he does not accept, he should see it through his own eyes. For this, the artworks are very helpful for him to understand real nature.
Thank you, Bante. Thank you for answering the other two questions from our audience. We've come to the
I
end of
don't know
the
you are happy or not.
yeah. By the way, they were not directly related to our topic, but you tried to explain as best you could. We have come to the end of this evening's Dhamma sharing. And Bante, would you like to conduct the Anumodana, the transfers of merits to the Devas and the dearly departed beings?
Okay. Sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitatta. May all beings be happy.
Thank you,
Thank you
Bante.
very much.
So we've come to the end of this evening's Dhamma sharing.
I for Bhavat.
Yeah. Okay, Bante. So we've come to the end of this evening's Dhamma sharing. We would like to thank Professor Revata Anunaika Thera for taking time off to explain to us about reincarnation, rebirth, and transmigration, and also from a Buddhist perspective, especially on rebirth. Just for your information, Professor Revata will be joining us on Sunday, and Bante will be talking to us about remembering past lives. It's a topic we have decided to explore fully. I think Bante had mentioned it briefly just now about remembering past lives. Is it a reality? Is it a fact? or is it a myth, or is it just some fake news? So Bante will be discussing this Sunday here at the Buddhist Mahaviharas Facebook page on our Dhammadana series, and we look forward to seeing you then on Sunday. So before we end, Bante, thank you so much for taking time off from your busy schedule to be with us on behalf of the Committee of Management and also the monks of the Buddhist Mahavihara. Thank you. And to all our sponsors this evening, who sponsored this evening's Dhamma sharing, may you be well and happy. And also to all our listeners who have joined us from both the Buddhist Mahavihara Facebook page and the Theravada Buddhist Council's Facebook page. I hope you enjoyed and benefited from this evening's Dhamma sharing. Then have a pleasant evening, one and all. Sadhu. Sukhi Hotu.
Okay, good.